There are a number of myths about purpose that have become very prevalent and cause a lot of confusion to people when they're thinking about purpose and what it ought to look like. So I'd like to address a few of these myths today so that you're not putting yourself under pressure to be somebody that you're never going to be. So the first myth that I find that is very common is that when you know your purpose, you'll be filled with passion. And people judge themselves that they're not passionate enough. They see other people who are desperately passionate about their work and they think that they should be like that. But purpose and passion are not the same thing. Let me just say a little bit about passion first of all, because it's an interesting word. If you think about passion, the root of it is actually in the Latin word for suffering, which is rather intriguing. But let's just look at passion for a moment in terms of a relationship. Can you imagine a relationship that's passionate all the time? It would be totally exhausting. It's not what you want. You want to have some passion from time to time, but you don't want to have it all the time. So the idea that you should be totally passionate about what you're doing all the time is actually a recipe for exhaustion and burnout. So having a deep sense of purpose may sometimes produce sometimes or some periods where you do feel passionate about what you're doing, but it's actually, purpose is really somewhere much deeper inside yourself, much more steady, much more stable, and it does not require you to be passionate. Some people are naturally more passionate than others. Some people are naturally very calm and very dispassionate about what they do, but that doesn't mean they don't have purpose. You can absolutely have as much purpose as a passionate person if passion is not your flavor. Okay, so let's not get hung up on the passion thing. Let passion fits where passion is valuable, and let's concentrate on finding your own natural sense of purpose. A common myth about purpose is that once you know your purpose, you'll never feel lost or confused again. That, I'm afraid, is simply not true. In fact, what I find is that people who are very clear about their purpose probably ask more questions about it than people who aren't. I regularly question what I'm doing and why I'm doing it and what my purpose is. I regularly allow myself to bring doubt to my purpose. It's almost a way of stress testing it. Is it really strong? Because if I can pull it apart just by doubting it, then it isn't really strong. Sometimes things happen to me that make me feel completely lost or confused, and I find those things actually very valuable. They often show me where there's something that I need to work on deep inside myself that's not resolved, and then once I've worked on it, I will feel that I'm on track again. So for me, it is part of my journey sometimes to feel confused or to feel lost or to question and doubt my purpose. And it's those kinds of things that have made my purpose stronger. So if you're somebody who does have a sense of purpose, but then find yourself doubting it or finding yourself confused, those times of doubt and confusion are actually very important indicators that there is inner work that you need to do. You may need to learn how to do that. It's not always obvious what to do when you feel lost or confused, and it's not always easy to find your way out of it. But these are basically straightforward skills that you can learn. That's the kind of stuff I teach people all the time, so that you can find your track again and keep moving forwards. So please don't imagine that somebody with a strong sense of purpose never feels lost or never feels doubt. Absolutely they do, but what they do know is how to use that lostness and doubt to strengthen their purpose and to confirm their direction. Many people believe that your purpose is the work that you should be doing or you ought to be doing, and that it's going to make sense of the rest of your life. And then people ask questions like, what am I supposed to be doing? It's almost like they think that God or some outside force has already determined what they're supposed to be doing and they're just looking for it. Now, I know that life can feel like that sometimes. We feel like there's a sense that there is something I'm supposed to be doing, or there's a sense that there's something that's on track for me, and that I'm not on track at the moment, and so I feel somehow a little bit lost, or a little bit kind of just like I know that it's not quite the right thing. But what I've found is that when we say, what am I supposed to be doing? We're putting the authority of our life into an outer being or an outer situation. We're not claiming that authority ourselves. Now, I do think that we come into life with some predetermined decisions. There are things that we've discussed, presumably in the space between lives, that create themes for our life. It seems that we come in with some kind of intention, some kind of experiences perhaps that are pretty much inevitably going to happen to us, that are part of our life's journey. But what I've found is, whilst I don't know for sure what is it that I'm doing here, what is that purpose that was set up, there are hints, there are kind of guidance and reminders to us to kind of help us find our direction, and many of us experience these. So it might be that we get really positive feedback from doing something that is profoundly satisfying to us. It might be that we have a natural talent that, if we can only grow it and nurture it, will be very beneficial to other people. It might be that we had experiences in our early life that drive us to feel very strongly about an issue and to become part of the change in the behavior around that issue. It might be that we feel called, perhaps by some outside something, but we somehow feel called to step up and create change in some way. And there are many other ways that we discover these hints, this subtle guidance around the decisions that perhaps we made in a world that we don't have access to at the moment, which is what happens between our lives. But I've found it very disempowering to ask the question, what am I supposed to be doing? It's almost like there's somebody out there who knows and I don't know, and my only job in this life is to figure out what they know, which is what I don't know. And the problem with that is, in a predominantly Christian and God-based society, whether you've grown up in that tradition or not, that somebody is usually a godlike figure who will always know more than you do. And so it feels like a bit of a hopeless cause. Like, I'm never going to really understand my purpose like God's going to, because God knows everything. And so we feel like we're on a losing game from the very beginning. So for me, what I learned to do is to recognize that I am a part of life. I am a part of creation. If you want to use the God language, if that's your language, I am a part of God, whatever works for you. And therefore, it's not what I'm supposed to be doing determined by some outward authority. It's that I'm in life, living my life, exploring life, and finding out how to be on purpose, how to have meaning in my life, how to have direction in my life as I go along. And that is the whole point of it. There's a reason why we come in not remembering all of that stuff. And it's so that we can have this experience of discovering ourselves, discovering our values, standing for things, developing purpose, growing purpose, becoming stronger in purpose, setting up direction in relation to purpose. All of these things are very important experiences in human life. So I recommend to everybody, stop asking the question, what am I supposed to be doing? And start looking for the guidance and the hints that are already showing up in your life. Usually you'll find that everything you've done so far was exactly the right thing to be doing. And when you start to trust yourself, you will start to discover more of your purpose and to trust it more deeply. I often meet people who believe that if they know their purpose, they will know what impact they're having on the world or in the world. That, I think, is actually just completely incorrect. For me, purpose is a sense of direction. It moves me forward. What I've discovered about impact is that impact usually happens in my wake. It happens behind me. And as long as I'm looking forward and moving forward, a lot of the impact I have, I don't even see. I don't notice it. And my experience is that is how it's supposed to be. There's a beautiful principle that was taught by Buckminster Fuller called precession. And the perfect example of that is the bee, who is on a mission, if you like, to collect nectar from flowers. In the process of that mission, they also collect a whole lot of pollen on their hind legs, which they probably can't even see because it's behind their eyesight. When they go back to the hive, I don't know all the details of being a bee, but that pollen is very, very valuable to the whole hive. So their goal, if you like, is collecting the nectar, but their impact is bringing that pollen. So it seems like life works like that. When we're in motion towards something, the impact of our motion happens behind us, and that means it's largely behind our peripheral vision. So I don't look to count all the impact that I make. I think that's an almost impossible thing. I look to stay on direction, to do the best thing I can. And when I receive feedback about impact, I take note of it. It's always valuable to get that feedback. One of the problems about watching your impact all the time is that if you discover you're having let's say you're going this direction, you discover you're having an impact over here, what many people will do is then change direction, say, okay, I need to go towards the impact. So for example, you're really busy coaching people about money, let's say, something that I do a lot of. And you suddenly find people coming saying, you know what you taught me last week helped me so much with my relationship. And then somebody else says, oh, that was so helpful for my relationship. And you think, oh, maybe I should be a relationship coach. You change direction, you start going towards the impact. And then the same thing happens again. People start saying, oh, improving my relationship had so much beneficial effect on my health. And you think, oh, maybe I should be a health coach. And you change direction. This happens a lot when you're in the early stages. And actually, the best thing that I've found to do is to choose the direction I'm going and then notice the impacts. So I've done a lot of teaching people around their relationship with money. It has a very beneficial impact on people's relationships. It has a very beneficial impact on their health, has a very beneficial impact on their business. People often say, will you teach business, Sarah? But I don't teach business. Other people teach business. I keep going in this direction, actually, of true wealth, money turning into true wealth, and all these other impacts come in the wake of that. They come behind my movement. And that way I don't get distracted by bright, shiny objects in the way that I used to. I don't keep changing direction every time I hear a good testimonial. And it means that gradually we can build a solid platform, a solid offering or a solid contribution that is actually really worth growing. One of the very interesting things about purpose is that I think we often expect it to make life more dramatic, more exciting, more, it's like there's more going on, especially people who are feeling a bit lost around purpose. And look, in one way, absolutely it does. It creates challenges that perhaps you never thought you'd have. It gives you problems to solve that you never thought you were going to have to solve. Because when you step into your purpose, you take on something. You say, I'm going to make a difference in the world. So of course there are challenges there, and of course there are problems. There are always problems to be solved. But the interesting thing that I found is that the further I go in developing and growing my purpose, at one level, the more ordinary my life feels. Somebody looking at it from the outside would probably say, your life isn't ordinary at all, Sarah. But to me, I find that the only way I can deal with those challenges and deal with all the problems that need to be solved is by becoming more and more quiet inside myself, more and more neutral in my energy, letting go of the drama of the ups and the highs and the drama of the crises and the lows, and taking life as something that is happening. There are all these things happening. They are facts. They are actually things that are happening. Choosing how I respond to them rather than being driven by what's happening, especially emotionally driven. And then allowing this kind of simplicity and ordinariness to emerge in my own life so that I can be fully present for doing things that are actually not ordinary at all. So really what I'm saying is the more purpose you have, the less special you feel. it may well be that you're doing things that are more special, because when you stay on track for a long time, you grow a lot of skill. And so it does enable you to do things that are more special than what other people can do. But the more special things you can do, the more important it becomes to feel not special, actually, and just to be yourself, to be at one and at peace with yourself, to be able to be simple, to be able to be very ordinary, actually. And that is what gives you the power and the energy to be able to live a life that other people might view as being quite extraordinary.